It all began with a bizarre online story. A 60-year-old man from Moscow named Petr, claiming he hasn't slept for over 40 years. No naps, no dozing off, no unconscious rest whatsoever. The story, often shared on forums and fringe blogs, offered no clear origin, no medical documentation, no direct interviews, just whispers and second-hand retellings. And yet, the idea spread like wildfire. Could a man really go without sleep for 4 decades? The claim was astounding. People imagined a superhuman immune system, unmatched mental clarity, and perhaps a secret government experiment. But as we dug deeper, questions multiplied. Where's the proof? Why haven't reputable news outlets covered such a medical marvel? And most importantly, why Moscow? The city's rich history with science, medicine, and secrecy made the story even more compelling. But the more we searched, the more the story unraveled. No hospital visits, no published interviews, no trace of Petr. Just a few shadowy references, likely reworded copies of each other. It looked less like a medical mystery and more like a digital legend. Still, even false stories have roots. The human brain is wired to believe what it wants to be true. This leads to a bigger question. Have there ever been real people who lived without sleep? What we found next takes us far beyond Moscow and into some of the strangest medical archives on Earth. Around the world, a handful of individuals have made headlines for allegedly living without sleep. One of the most infamous was Paul Kern, a Hungarian soldier from World War I who took a bullet to the head. After the injury, he claimed he never slept again. Remarkably, he lived for decades in this state. But was he truly awake the whole time? Medical evaluations were limited in his era, so we'll never know for sure. Then there's Al Herpin from New Jersey, who said he hadn't slept a single night in his life. Doctors examined him and couldn't find clear signs of sleep deprivation. He lived into his 80s, reportedly with no signs of fatigue. Still, some experts suspect he entered micro-sleep states or light rest phases without realizing it. Perhaps the most puzzling modern case is Yakov Tseperevich from Belarus. In the late 1970s, he claimed he stopped sleeping entirely after a near-death experience. He even stated that he no longer aged. However, there's no medical confirmation, and interviews often contradict each other. Despite public curiosity, no independent studies have verified his claims. Each of these cases is soaked in mystery, with little scientific backing. They're fascinating, but also problematic. None of these individuals were ever monitored in controlled settings for extended periods. Still, they leave us with one burning question. How long can the human body survive without sleep? What scientists discovered through actual experiments might shock you. In the 1960s, a high school student named Randy Gardner decided to push his body to the limit. For a science fair project, he stayed awake for 11 full days, about 264 hours, under observation by doctors and researchers. By day 3, he was experiencing mood swings and memory lapses. By day 6, he became paranoid and began hallucinating. After the experiment ended, Gardner slept for nearly 15 hours straight. His body desperately needed recovery. No one has since broken his record under scientific observation. Why? Because the effects of prolonged wakefulness are dangerous. The brain begins to malfunction, the immune system weakens, and hallucinations become common. Sleep is not just a luxury, it's essential for survival. Other volunteers and researchers who attempted similar experiments experienced the same pattern: disorientation, tremors, and cognitive breakdown. After 5 to 7 days, the body forces microsleeps, tiny bursts of unconsciousness that last a few seconds. These occur even with eyes open. The longest known survival without sleep is uncertain. But what's clear is this: the body has built-in mechanisms to protect itself. Complete voluntary sleeplessness over months or years defies every known principle of biology. If someone truly claimed decades without sleep, science would expect their body to show catastrophic damage. Yet the supposed cases, like Petr's, lack even basic health complaints. Which leads to another question: what exactly happens inside the body when we do sleep? Sleep isn't just rest, it's repair. While we drift into unconsciousness, the brain conducts a full-body reset. Memories are organized, waste proteins are flushed, and hormone levels recalibrate. It's one of the most critical biological functions, more vital than food in the short term. During deep sleep, the immune system strengthens, muscles grow and repair, and the brain clears out toxins through a process called the glymphatic system. This nightly maintenance is non-negotiable. Without it, even basic cognition breaks down. Reaction times slow, emotions become erratic, and attention wavers. Extended deprivation leads to severe psychiatric symptoms, paranoia, hallucinations, and even identity confusion. Neurologists have also found that during REM sleep, the brain processes emotional experiences. It's how we cope with stress, fear, and trauma. People who don't reach REM sleep show higher rates of anxiety and depression. Simply put, sleep is how the brain resets emotionally and physically. So how could someone live decades without it and not collapse? Science has never documented such a case. The body simply wouldn't survive. But perhaps the answer lies not in what we know, but in rare cases where the body's relationship with sleep becomes truly abnormal. There are real disorders where sleep disappears, and the results are terrifying. Among the rarest and most horrifying conditions in sleep medicine is fatal familial insomnia, FFI. It's an inherited disease caused by a mutation in the PRNP gene. Those who have it gradually lose the ability to sleep entirely. At first, it's just mild insomnia, then it becomes severe. Eventually, no amount of medication or exhaustion can bring rest. Victims suffer from hallucinations, panic attacks, and rapid mental decline. Within months to a few years, the condition ends in death. There are no known survivors. Other disorders paint a grim picture of sleep gone wrong. Klein-Levin syndrome, for instance, sends people into extreme sleep states, sometimes over 20 hours a day. Sleep apnea causes the brain to wake repeatedly without full awareness, shattering deep rest. Narcolepsy causes sudden, uncontrollable sleep episodes during the day. But what about the opposite? Cases where people claim they don't sleep at all. In almost every verified instance, sleep studies reveal they are wrong. Patients often enter microsleeps or have fragmented, light sleep that feels like wakefulness. Some conditions, like paradoxical insomnia, convince people they're awake all night when in fact their brain is cycling through shallow rest phases. Doctors studying these disorders agree on one thing: even broken, incomplete sleep is still sleep. Total absence? That's not just rare, it's biologically impossible. So if someone says they haven't slept in decades, science demands proof. But what if that proof never shows up? Sometimes, the illusion itself is enough to spark a myth. One of the most puzzling phenomena in sleep science is paradoxical insomnia, a condition where people genuinely believe they haven't slept, even though sleep studies prove otherwise. Patients report lying awake all night, fully conscious, yet brain scans show typical sleep cycles: light sleep, deep sleep, even REM. They don't feel rested, but their bodies and minds have in fact been sleeping. This illusion is more common than many think. It highlights how subjective our awareness of sleep can be. People with paradoxical insomnia often suffer from anxiety or hyperarousal, making them more sensitive to nighttime wakefulness. A single restless moment feels like hours, and brief awakenings are exaggerated in memory. Sleep scientists use tools like EEG to monitor brain waves and video recordings to capture body movement. These reveal microsleeps, brief, seconds-long dips into unconsciousness that the person doesn't perceive. Over hours, these add up to real rest, even if it doesn't feel like it. This misunderstanding can feed myths. Someone like Petr might feel perpetually awake, when in truth, his body cycles through irregular, shallow sleep phases. Without clinical monitoring, such experiences are misleading, even to the person living them. Stories of sleepless individuals often stem from sincere belief, not deception. But belief doesn't override biology, and when that belief spreads beyond the individual, it becomes something else entirely, a legend that takes on a life of its own. Modern myths thrive in the digital age, and the media often plays an unintentional part in keeping them alive. Sensational stories, like a man who hasn't slept in 40 years, draw immediate attention. That means more views, more shares, and more revenue. As a result, some outlets lower their standards. They publish headlines without verifying facts, or they repackage old stories with new dates and vague references to experts or anonymous sources. Once a story like Petr's appears online, other sites copy and repost it. Each version becomes a little more polished, a little more believable. Some add a photo of a generic man, taken from stock images. Others create dramatic YouTube videos with eerie music and unverified interviews. Before long, the story feels real, not because it's true, but because it's everywhere. In this feedback loop, repetition replaces evidence. Readers see the story multiple times and assume someone else must have checked the facts. In reality, no one has. It's a game of digital telephone, where each version strays stories further from the original and further from the truth. This isn't just a problem for fantastical stories. It erodes public trust in real science. When fiction parades as fact, actual research is drowned out. And when people believe they've seen the truth in headlines, they stop asking questions. But scientists do ask questions. And when it comes to sleep, they have powerful tools to separate myth from reality. Inside their labs, claims like Peter's are put to the test, literally. Sleep labs are where myths face reality. These controlled environments are equipped with cutting-edge tools that monitor every detail of the body during rest. Electroencephalograms, EEGs, track brainwaves. Heart rate monitors, breathing sensors, and eye-tracking devices record every movement. Nothing escapes the lab's attention, not even a few seconds of unconsciousness. When someone claims they don't sleep, sleep scientists invite them in. The procedure is simple but revealing. Spend several nights in a lab while the equipment does its work. In nearly all documented cases, the results are the same. Patients do sleep, even if they believe otherwise. Often, they fall into fragmented or light sleep stages that don't feel restful, but biologically, the brain is still doing its job. These findings have debunked countless sleepless claims. Paradoxical insomnia is frequently diagnosed this way, where patients swear they stayed awake, but EEG results show otherwise. Microsleeps, those brief unconscious blinks of the brain, also show up clearly on scans, even when the person is unaware they occurred. In the world of sleep science, data doesn't lie. Claims of sleepless decades can't hold up when tested against hard evidence. If someone truly never slept for even a week, the brain would show signs of collapse. Yet in every study, sleep, in some form, is always present. So what happens when someone claims to be different? What if, instead of denying sleep, they seem to function unusually well with almost none at all? That brings us to the rarest outliers in the science of rest. Yakov Tseperevich, an electrician from Belarus, emerged in the late 1970s with a claim that stunned doctors and reporters alike. He hadn't slept since surviving clinical death. According to interviews, his wife had poisoned him, leading to a coma and then full cardiac arrest. After being revived, he said, he never felt the need to sleep again. For decades, Tseperevich has been featured in tabloids and TV shows across Eastern Europe. He claims perfect health, high energy, and sharp mental focus. Some articles describe him reading through the night, working non-stop, and undergoing medical examinations that left doctors confused. But there's a major problem. None of these sources are peer-reviewed, and no published sleep studies confirm his claims. In interviews, Tseperevich appears calm and articulate, but never cites hospitals, doctors, or clinical proof. His case is based entirely on self-reporting, and despite his story's wide circulation, no sleep laboratory has ever publicly documented a multi-night observation of his behavior. Some scientists suspect that he may be experiencing a form of paradoxical insomnia, or perhaps exaggerated light sleep where the person remains aware. Others argue that media reports have amplified his claims without adequate investigation. Tseperevich's story fascinates because it sounds medically impossible, yet eerily consistent. But without objective evidence, it remains in the same category as the man from Moscow, a captivating mystery without verification. So is it possible these cases are genuine medical wonders, or just modern folklore built on misperception? Let's put all the evidence side by side. After reviewing decades of scientific research, real clinical cases, and documented sleep disorders, one conclusion stands clear. No human has ever been proven to survive without sleep for years, let alone decades. The body simply doesn't allow it. From molecular biology to neuroscience, every system in the human body depends on regular sleep to function, heal, and survive. Stories like the man from Moscow or Yakov Tseperevich captivate us because they challenge what we think is possible. But belief isn't proof. No medical journals, no peer-reviewed studies, no verified sleep lab reports support these claims. In every controlled test, people who believed they didn't sleep were shown to experience at least some level of unconscious rest, even if fragmented or unnoticeable to them. The myth of the sleepless man persists because it's powerful. It suggests hidden abilities, evolutionary leaps, or unexplained phenomena. But in reality, the human body is remarkably consistent. It obeys its own biological rules. The absence of sleep, over time, doesn't lead to superhuman strength. It leads to failure, decay, and death. If a man were truly living without sleep for 40 years, science would treat him as the most important case in modern medicine. He would be studied relentlessly, published globally, and debated in every neuroscience journal. That hasn't happened because the man, as described, doesn't exist. And that's the truth beneath the mystery. Not every story survives the light of scrutiny. Some fade, not because they aren't fascinating, but because reality, though less dramatic, is far more honest.